Dumbledore Beast Quest, Epos the Flame Bird. Prologue. I'm lost, thought Owen. The tunnel ended in yet another dark cave. Panic rose in the boy's throat as he tried to retrace his steps, but he knew it was hopeless. Although he had left chalk magics on the rock walls, it was too dark to see them. Only a while ago, Owen had been playing outside the caves on the north side of the village. Then he had heard noises from inside the caves, scraping, scrambling noises. People had hardly ever entered the caves, as they were unsafe and stretched for miles underground. Rock falls were common too, but he couldn't ignore whatever was there, and how must have wandered and got lost, he told himself. It won't take long to help the poor thing back out. He had tried to follow the scrabbling sounds he had heard, and now it was hopelessly lost. He stood helpless in the cold blackness. Is anybody there? He called. His voice echoed eerily back at him. These caves shook the slightest sound and twisted it, making it seem that it came from one direction when it came from another. He felt ahead, and his finger brushed against a pitted rock, and nothing. Stepping forward, Owen realized he found a mouth of a new cave. A little way in, there was a faint light. He looked up and saw a chink of gray sky and rock high above. His foot scraped against on the floor. There was a piece of scorched armor. Where had this come from? What happened to the knight who had worn it? Looks like a weave, which knights used to protect the chin and lower face, only smaller. Suddenly a terrifying screech sliced through the air. Owen yelled out in terror, staring around wildly. A dog shape detached itself from the shadows and towered toward him. And Owen thought it was a giant bird. Its huge sail-like wings unfurled. They were covered in short dark gold feathers. Its beak was long and sharp as a sword. Two fierce eyes fixed on Owen, blazing like irons in a blacksmith's plier. The creature's huge talons were scratching on the rock, tearing it up, heart pounding. Owen realized that this was the sound he had heard. There were the animal he had hoped to rescue. He needed rescuing, and fast. The creature lurched towards him, and then its massive feathered bulk burst into flame. Owen hurled himself to the ground as the beast launched into the air, as its great fiery wings beating wildly as it flew straight at him. Chapter 1, A Fiery Threat. We must be nearly through the forest now, Tom called his friend Alina, who was walking behind him. He drew his sword and hacked the thorny thicket barring the way. The light was thin, the gray sky barely visible through the heavy branches overhead. Don't worry, I'll make it, Alina assured him. She was leading Storm, Tom's sturdy black stallion, and stopped for a moment, leaning against the horse for support. But a rest would be good. A pet wolf, Silver, sank into the long grass beside her and barked. Hear that? Alina smiled. Silver agrees with me. Tom shook his head. This had taken us many days to get this far. We must keep going. How many people be in such a rush to battle a giant flame bird? Said Alina. Tom was exhausted too, but with the spell of determination, he raised his blade and swept fiercely at the undergrowth. It was a vital quest for King Hugo of Aventia. He couldn't give up now. The end was almost in sight. His mission was to save the kingdoms from the means of the beasts, creatures of legend, placed under an evil spell by the dark wisdom of El. Tom used to think the beasts were just fairy stories, but now he knew there was nothing make-believe about that. Alina and Silver had joined Tom and Storm on the quest, and together they had risked their lives setting the beasts free from Abel's curse that already faced up to a one-eyed giant and a slithering sea serpent. They had tackled a horseman, a fire dragon, and a terrifying snow monster. Now the task was to free Epis the Flamebird from the dark enchantment she was under. Tom pulled his shield from his back and used it to crush some more bracken. "Let's rest for a few moments while we check the map," he said to Alina. "Great," said Alina, slumping to the ground beside Silver. Tom leaned over and rested his muzzle on her shoulder, snoring softly. Tom reached into his pocket to pull out the magical map of Avantia, given to them by the king's closest advisor, Wizard Drow. Tom sat beside Alina as his face traced over the trees, hills, and lakes. The pictures rose up from the parchment, standing as tall as his thumbnail. A pulsing green line marked the path he and Alina had taken from the ice field to the far north to the grey forest to the east. "We're nearly at the forest edge," said Tom with relief. Alina pointed to a miniature mountain on the map, just beyond the forest. "That must be a volcano," as she watched. Tiny puffs of smoke seemed to rise from the mountain. "It's supposed to be dormant," said Tom. "Well, according to the map, that's where we'll find Epis." The riddle's amplification ran through him. Others said she was most powerful of all the beasts. He frowned at the map. Why would anyone build a village close to a volcano, even a dormant one? The soil around volcanoes is very fertile, so crops grow well, said Aline. "I learned that from my uncle." She looked down at her hands. "It's been so long since I left my village. I miss the people there." Tom smiled. "Then we'll finish our quest. I bet Audra will take you home." "But what about you?" said Aline. "Will you go back to your aunt and uncle in Ireland?" "I expect so," said Tom, looking away. "But what I really want to do is find my father." Tom's mother had died when he was very young. His father, Kaladin, had disappeared soon afterwards. Tom had been raised by his aunt and uncle. He still hoped to find his father someday. All he knew was that Kaladin had served King Hugo in the past, just as Tom was doing now. Wait, Tom's nose twitched. "Can you smell smoke?" Alina caught. "Someone must have lit a fire." Suddenly a loud rumble sounded through the forest, and the ground beneath them shook. Tom kneed and reared up in alarm as Tom and Alina scrambled to their feet. Tom looked up. Through the leaves, he glimpsed the clouds of dark smoke choking the sky. They were shot through the thin streaks of fire like shooting stars. "The volcano!" Alina gasped. "It's going to erupt. We need to find shelter." Tom said, "That flamebird must be stirring things up." Then Alina froze. "Look," she stammered, staring right past Tom. Rolling around, Tom felt his heart leaped in his throat. A huge bird-like creature stood in a small clearing not far away from them, at a jutting peak. Violent flames flickered and sparkled all over it. A golden band was attached to one of its muscular legs. The earth smoked beneath its talons. Its massive, glittering wings brushed against the nearby bushes and set them alight. "Epis," Tom breathed, his fingers tightening around his sword hilt. "Came to find her, but she's found us." The beast's fierce red eyes narrowed as she rose to the blazing forest. Tom knew a fireball forming in the round flames at her feet. Then a shriek of rage. Epis hurled a ball of flame straight at Tom.